everyone, welcome to the Age of Listening channel. As always, we're going deep. So when you go deep into the symbols of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, you're really able to see the story of each card and learn tarot a lot faster. So we're in the middle now of the elements, the four main elements, the four suits from, we've done the major arcana and now we're into the suits. So before we go individually, we're just going to look at the four elements, and now we're on to air, which is noted to Gemini, Aquarius and Libra. And so let's go straight into it. So when you see the air signs and the air suit, you're talking about truth, you're talking about the battle of the mind, cutting through illusions, the certain amount of pain and a certain amount of anger and sorrow, because air can be in their heads a lot. Okay, so I was dreading sort of doing this one because it's the battle in the mind. You know, it's the cause of many a sorrow and many a sleepless night. And so if you are a Libra, an Aquarius or a Gemini, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's all about conquering this suit. It's all about conquering that mind, and it's telling us if you can have the mind of Christ, or because Christ doesn't mean Jesus, it means we can all be Christ. That's why Christians are called Christians, little Christs. Going back to knowing that we are a spark from God, we are part of God. But as such, you have to learn the lesson of controlling that mind and not letting it control you. So the mind never stops whirling, just the same as way that air never stops blowing. So this element's conveying how we can control it and harness it for our betterment. You know, think of the hurricanes let loose on our landscape. You know, it brings a lot of distraction, and so can the mind if we don't be that chariot or the strength card. No one else can control what you think. It really is up to you. So I was given a picture on how you can master the mind, and I'm going to be doing a video on that at some point in the future. But this element in tarot, though, shows us how the mind can trip us up as warnings so that we can adjust and go on a different path of thinking about ourselves and our situation. Air doesn't like going into their emotions, you know, the water element, but that is exactly what they must do, really. Otherwise, they don't get that balance, and they become very emotionally detached from the situation, from themselves, and they can stay in a very sad and fixed position. And it is sad. I've seen it over and over again with air signs. So an unevolved air sign can become a little bit like a very robotic, very Spock in their thinking, but also being right is all well and good, but are they fulfilled? And that's often the big question. So let's look here. So the Ace card. So you've got a mental force or fortitude, justice or truth is coming your way. Number 2, here we have protection mode. Blocked emotion. She's got a blindfold on her that she has put on her. She has crossed her arms, so nothing is getting to her heart, and she's got them outwards, so ready to stab anyone that comes near her. She's feeling stuck. Her swords and her physical body is one of I'm ready to fight anyone who's going to help me get unstuck from my own mind, and she's closed off her emotions. Over here with 3, yes, it's, you know, people often say, and I'm not saying it's wrong at all, but I did meditate on this card quite a bit, and yes, there is 3 swords, and yes, they are stabbing a sword, and it can be viewed as 3 people in a love triangle. But let's just look at it from what, you know, the swords have to be there to symbolize it's 3. So, but let's look at what else is there. There's clouds, there's lots of rain and a heart, and it's feeling blue. This is heartbreak, loneliness, rejection, desertion, betrayal, discovering a painful truth. That's, if I had to pick on one, discovering a painful truth would probably be it. But, you know, the season for everything. Look at the bigger picture. What have I learned from this situation, this discovered understanding? Would I have done anything differently, and can I move on from it? Yes, you can. So the next 3 cards I love. I mean, I do love these cards, really. It's not that I don't, because they're very interesting. So here we have, just sort my cards out. So here we have the Four of Swords. So in this card we've got rest, contemplation. It's like the Hermit Mode card, except that he's not going to God for enlightenment. He's going into himself, just holding back a bit, withdrawing, probably in order to recover and contemplate. So it's that quiet contemplation, quiet preparation, going for a walk in the morning, having a breath, you know. Over here, this is a really complicated card, but and quite derisive. So is this card about the person in the front, or, and you know, his smirk kind of says it all, he's won the battle at others' expense. But is this about the people, is this about the people in the background who are going away defeated? So winning the argument at the expense of others' feelings isn't right. It's not really, you know, battles that hurt people with the tongue, you know, it's not just financial, it can be any situation really. But what came to my mind is, because it's swords and it's about, with all this air, there's such a force coming from this person, and he's won. But you know, okay, we need to go into this in depth really on another video. But it's about conflict, loss and defeat. But could it be about victory? And could it be about victory at someone else's expense? Are you the smirker? Are you the Libra or the Gemini that or the Aquarius who's cut somebody severely, causing conflict and loss? You know, is there a lesson here that we need to, with air signs, do you have to be careful that sometimes winning a battle means that nobody's really won, possibly? Here we have the Six of Wands, and their backs are to us. So we know that they're getting out of Dodge City. It can be the travelling card, but here we have air energy and people are leaving. They are detaching from where they were, going somewhere else. So the swords are with them, showing that they are holding the element of air with them and they are in transit. Is it somewhere better? Hopefully, but it's about detaching. That's how I see it anyway. We're getting through. We're getting through. So now we have, whoops. So now we have the cut and run card. Whoops, the cut and run. Now I've got certain feelings on this. Again, it's a backdrop card. So this is the situation and this is what he's feeling. I kind of think it's the ghosting card. So here we have a background that's plentiful. He's cutting and running. Is this a dishonourable action? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Could be. Have you told people, given them notice, or have you ghosted them? This guy's taking the money and running, just like that song by Steve Miller, taken the money and ran. Skipping town may be easier, but if that's your modus operandum, you know, you're going to remain quite emotionally immature. So, you know, if he'd been honest, could he have left with all of the swords? All of the 7? You know, there's a time to sneak away for safety, definitely, but not as a normal way of dealing with people. Moving over here to the 8. So this is confusion and oppressive thinking, but let's look at the 2 swords and compare them. See if I can find them. So here we have, they look very similar, don't they? But there is a difference. So the 2 isn't letting anyone near her. She's blinded by her own thoughts. But here we've got the 8 of Swords, and this is kind of what happens next. She's becoming powerless. She's now immobilized. She's got nothing stuck, nothing holding her feet. She can go backwards and forwards, but she sees there's no way out. There is, but she can't see it. She's overthought the situation to the point that unless she snaps out of this, it will continue to consume her. Now we have the I can't sleep card, and we've all been there. We all know this feeling. The background is black, there's no light. She's torturing herself. The mental sorrow she's feeling only begins to give some relief to her when the sun rises. But come night time, when she's alone, her thoughts, the blackness descends again. And what came to me was, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. That's a biblical piece of text. But the secret of that particular one is, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So what it means is, you're not walking through the valley of death. You're walking through a shadow of it. In other words, it's not real. So what you're feeling on these deep nights of sleeplessness isn't real. It's a shadow of it. And you're locked in a sudden fear and panic, possibly regret. But in the light of day, it doesn't seem so bad because it isn't real. There may be stuff that someone's done and it's not great, but it's not earth-shattering. You're not going to die from this. It just seems really bad. And nearly finished. So we've got the 10. So the 10 here, this is kind of, well, there's 2 ways to look at it. You know, feeling a bit of a martyr, a victim mentality, left for dead. People either see it as the martyr card, or they can see it as, you know, they've been left for dead by somebody. We can all feel both these ways, but when we're at the bottom, there's no way but up. So this man is showing us kind of how it feels to be right at the bottom. But you know what? Okay, you've got to get up. There's only one way, and that's up. And that's okay. Some people get their best, the best from themselves when they've hit rock bottom. Just don't forget that. Don't stay stuck, basically. So now we have the Page of Swords, the Knight and the Queen. So, a learning, doing and feeling. Learning, doing and feeling. So here, there's a lot of air in this picture, a lot of air. And there's two ways to look at this, really. You can see that, well, okay, so humility might be a bit of a lesson he'll have to learn. A page when we're learning about our emotions. He's looking around backwards, he's on high ground. So, you know, could humility be something that this young page has to learn? He's not learnt to be forthright or use the other elements to balance him just yet. So this card can be seen as criticalness, the side eye, but it can also be seen as not getting involved in disputes or a scenario, staying away from conflict. But a problem of the mind might be approaching. So, you know, probably about being truthful or, you know, fortifying yourself in some way. Now we have the Knight, the doing card, an amazing card, often comes up for me. Young knight, riding in where few fear to tread, eager for battle. But this also might be showing us the mind of someone who opens his mouth before thinking, probably not fully mature enough to see the situation or others' feelings in the process. So this knight going out into the world has not yet learnt to balance, but there's power, you know, there's power in pausing. But, you know, this guy is rushing straight in, and because, you know, he really thinks he's right. But the symbolism shows a lot of things as well, and we'd have to go through that separately. We have the Queen of Feeling. So she has her outstretched hand, and she's been in her own head. You know, she's been there, she's been to all of the dark places, but she's wiser. And she's witty without that passive aggression of her youth. She's honest without being hurtful. She's astute and balanced in her thinking. She's not as serious as she used to be. She's learnt to embrace but control her feelings, putting common sense first. And, you know, we can see this by all of these butterflies. And, you know, there are butterflies here. You've got someone very stationary with the page, but he's learnt to evolve. There is evolvement here in that he's learning to charge forward. She's done her charging, and she has evolved. But now we move on to the King Solomon. The King Solomon. Whoops. Sorry. It's me trying to do two things at the same time. So he's articulate, analytical after years of ruling and commanding. And he sits representing social order and judgment and power. His right arm lifts up the sword of truth. The expansive skyline behind him show he is high up and looks at those below. So this king sees all and scrutinises everything. His sword is ready to use, and he's ruled by his mind and his own judgment. And he reminds me a lot of the Emperor card, which I'm trying to look for now. But I can't find it. So, but yeah, he reminds me of the Emperor. Okay, so we're now finished that. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I look forward to doing the Ace and Element of Cups. Yoo-hoo!